I
Like,
know.
hey guys, welcome to my house, my messy
Yeah,
office.
happy 2024. We're making IG Live a thing again. But yeah, I'll do like an
Do an
intro.
intro as I'm
Yeah,
learning how to
yeah.
be a,
No
a, a
influence.
millennial.
Yeah, well, this is Winning Director Treatments, and we are on live with Carlyn Hudson, and we're doing a chat about pitches and treatments. And you are an amazing commercial director, specializing in comedy, and actually, I think have roots in Texas,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
from Texas.
yeah. Oh, nice, Oren. I just spoke with Oren earlier today. It was
Yeah,
very kicking it
that's
off, and we're all good.
that's my homie. He's one of my best friends.
Yeah, yeah. I was watching the wedding from afar, and
Oh yeah.
I'm like planning. I have all the questions.
Oh
And
good.
congrats.
This is now a wedding. Oh God, Oren's on.
Oh God. He's putting the pressure on.
I
Um,
know.
and ironically, you were just on a pitch deadline. So you're like coming off of hot off of a pitch, just maybe submitted a treatment, and
Yeah,
now we're going to talk about it. We're going to
yeah.
dissect it.
Can't wait. How exciting.
Um, yeah, but I wanna like nurture open conversations about treatments because I feel like it's something that we do so frequently. We sometimes spend our entire weekend, sometimes spend a day, a week. We put a lot of time into
Yeah.
these, and
Yeah.
it's often just kind of like conversing back and forth with our EPs. And I want to be able to just to talk about the workflow, talk about maybe the trends we're seeing, talking about what we're learning, or keep it open. And
Cool.
so thought you'd be a great person to talk to.
Great.
I Yeah, I mean, I guess with the treatment process, like, where do you begin when you get off that call and you're like your wheels are spinning,
Yeah.
and you want to kind of capture all those ideas before they like run off. Where
You
do you
know,
start?
I kind of do a lot of it even before the first call. Like I tend to I love prep. I'm a big nerd. I was a star student. Now I'm just bragging. Um, but like I like to appear really chill on calls as if this is all just coming to me, but I absolutely have notes written out and I say them like, oh my God, what about this? What if we do this thing? But I had fully written that out already. I already had the idea. So a lot of like my specific pitches I already have planned before the first call, actually. And
Mhm.
so I kind of like read the boards, do and then I love the Notes app and the iPhone. This is I'm a high tech director, and I just take a lot of notes and just do like, what am I? Okay, this makes me think of this, and like, oh, what is this missing? It needs heightening. What are some really bad ideas on how I heighten this? So I kind of like make Notes apps, and then after the call, I take another minute and I just go back in that document and I just kind of like brain dump again about some stuff that I thought of during the call. And I also try to remember what they said on the call.
Yeah.
That's maybe the hardest part is like, what what were they telling me that I really need to keep in mind? Because it's obviously like winning the job isn't about what I want, it's essentially what they want.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, that's such a great, segue to another conversation is like, how much do you bend what they gave you and what do you keep intact? And that's like the constant kind of, Jedi mind trick, kind
yes,
of trying to read the subconsciousness in the room. Like,
yeah,
what do they actually want? But then you realize that they're coming to you for a point of view. So if you just repeat back everything, then it's kind of like, and it doesn't stand out. But then how do you suggest something that's on the nose? And I mean, have you gone out on a big limb with an idea and it just totally sold through? Or, have you gotten feedback that they're like, oh, that was too big of a risk or something? Has that ever
yeah.
happened to
They've
you?
they've never said that's too big of a risk, but I've often felt it. I just feel like they don't want to say that because that makes them seem uncool or like not creative.
Right, right.
But I mean, I don't know if Oren is still on this, but he knows all about this really annoying job that I lost that I was mainly annoyed about because it was like a female thing. It was like women. I'm just spilling the tea now, but it was like a Miller sort of like female brewers. Like it was like this Alana Glazer thing, and it was this really cool whatever. And they hired a white man, whatever. But they came to me and they were like, really, this agency was like, we want your biggest ideas. Like nothing is too crazy, blah blah blah. Which to me is always a bit of an alarm bell. I'm always like, okay, but do you really want my ideas? Like, how crazy are we talking? And I was
Yeah.
like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for it. And I think I went too far,
Uh,
frankly, you know. And I did, and then something happened with the follow-up call, so I didn't really get a chance to walk them through it. There's only like a lot of people were missing from the follow-up call,
oh, that's
and so
so
yeah,
disappointing. It's like,
yeah, so I
you
felt like
know,
I didn't even really get to explain these ideas that they like begged me to put in there,
yeah.
but then I just looked like a crazy person, totally rewriting their stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I felt like that was I felt like that I went too far on that one for sure.
And you know, it's like it would have been, I think, worse if you didn't, you know. I mean, maybe it was
Maybe.
just one of those things that, but it's always like everything's so relative. So they say go big, and then their big is different than your big. And,
Yeah.
you know, especially like if it's like pharma or something, it's like go big, and they're like, oh, have a, you know, purple
Yes.
tree instead of a pink, whatever. It's like so minute in terms of how much they can push things. So
Yeah, that's true.
that's well a bummer. Sorry to hear that that didn't go your way, but
Look,
we move
and
on. The
it's
art
the
of
only
losing.
job I've ever lost. Just kidding. But yeah, it's tricky to walk the line between, and I think at this point I tried to really come with no expectations to the first call. Like the thing I was pitching on today or working on the treatment for today, I thought it was going to be one of those calls where I was like, well, if I get this, I'm just going to do the boards because whatever, I'll pitch some ideas, but like this is going to be like for the meal kind of job. That's what I call like for the meal, not the real. And then they really surprised me on the call that they were like, no, we want you to make this absurd. We want you to fuck it up kind of. And I was like, huh,
Okay.
okay. So, and this is like a Midwest agency. And
Mm.
in my opinion, the smaller the agency, the more open they are. Is that your
Oh.
experience?
Um, I I don't know. I'm trying to think of. I mean, I definitely feel like the most unique projects that I love the most have come out of like smaller shops actually. Like
Yeah.
Pantene was they're more actually more like PR
Yeah.
kind of bubbles because they can, you know, they can get the huge celebrity behind whatever Ritz crackers or something, and then they can do something really weird, and there's not 20 people in legal that are telling them not to do these things. And like maybe there's like more excuses that they could just, well, we're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this
Totally.
other thing for like Funworks, which is a pretty small agency that I didn't wasn't really familiar with, and I did we got to make like the interior of a gut, and like that was really fun.
Cool.
But yeah, so I agree with like, yeah, definitely smaller kind of feels like that's where you get to breathe. And then the bigger ones is you kind of have to follow through the motions and just maybe do the dog and pony show and
Yeah.
like, you know, get a masseuse on set. No, I'm kidding. That's like the
Great.
days, you know, when people say that, like, oh, the days when we had a masseuse in the bid.
Yes. My wife has a story when she was working in like as a PA years ago in New York. I remember they told her to get some crazy cake that was like
Oh,
450
really?
bucks, you
Oh
know?
my
And so
God.
she brings this cake and then they took like one bite and they're like, we don't like it. We want the other one instead. So she goes back out and spends like another $500 on cake. And so they just like on these like two famous cakes, there was like $900, you know?
Yeah.
And
Wow. Wow.
those days are
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but they still spend money on like accommodations and stuff. I'm like, cool. So the budget is 20K, but you're all staying at the Beverly Hilton.
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I'm just bitching.
No,
Anyways,
no, no. It's all
continue
good.
with
I
your
mean,
question.
that's why it's like it's okay because you know we're all just it's a process. It's like a love-hate relationship, I feel like, because
Yeah,
I also have an obsession with just my own like competitiveness with myself and like finding the perfect image that represents something, and like, you
yeah,
know, there is some kind of joy in creating something that you want to, bring to life, but also the trials and tribulations of like how much time, like what is your ROI? Am I putting 40 hours into this thing, but I'm not the preferred bidder? So,
I
do
know.
I'm always constantly evaluating, okay, I want to leave a good impression, so let's go big. But when you have that insight of you're not the preferred bidder, I always
I
wonder,
know.
have you ever had that where it's like gone in your favor, where you kind of swooped in with a incredible treatment or a great creative call and they just weren't expecting you, and then they're like, we love you, or anything that you can remember recently?
Not that I can remember. I think normally I feel like I'm like, uh, well, I'm like, you know what I'm about to bring up, maybe, but when I bid against you and you won, the only time we've ever bid against each other, Christina won, and that was a job that I thought was like a little bit of a shoe-in for me because
Oh
it
my
was like,
God.
because it was a celeb comedy thing, and that's like my bread and butter is like celeb comedy, but it was really like the set was
Oh my
so much
God,
a
I'm
big part of it.
literally blanking on this
It's
conversation with
it's
Jason
the
Alexander.
that one,
Oh
yes.
my God, I
Yes,
totally forgot about
yes,
that.
and I
Yeah.
remember I bid against you, and it was I was like, oh, that's interesting because even we have overlap, but it's not like I don't think we actually will bid against each other that often, you know.
No,
But
yeah,
it was a strange like concentric circle
yeah,
of like what I do and what you do, you know.
yeah.
And I think I kind of like phoned in that treatment a little bit, and maybe in my mind, maybe I would they never were going to go with me, but I had worked with one of the women on a team before on a really hard job for
Um,
McCann, the Whitney Cummings
oh,
thing. Um,
oh yeah, the Anna Vera. I love that project.
yeah, thank you. And so I was kind of like, I know one of the creatives. This is kind of up my alley, but I didn't get it. And I also like, but I don't know if I don't really feel like I nailed that treatment, you know? Like
Mm,
I just felt like I was like, yeah, this is funny. And I think I went so far on like the hamming up the comedy of it that they were looking more for like sort of the overall visual architecture of the thing instead of just trying to make it as funny as possible because Jason's already so funny.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you never really know. You can't really guess like what they're thinking, and
Yeah,
I would assume that. I mean, I forgot about this whole thing, so it's kind of funny that
I
we're
know.
talking
But I
about it
love it.
because you are so appropriate for that project.
Yes,
But
no,
the
but so are you actually. You know what I mean? It's sort of like we were
pay it
both good
forward.
for the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
great. I'm great.
yeah. But I mean, I've been against Oren before. It's like, and also, I lost this job once that I also thought I was going to get. It was a lottery job. I can't for the life of me win a lottery job. I
Oh
bid
man.
on lottery jobs and lose them. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why can't I win a lottery job? I bid on like five and never. I like my batting average is like pretty high, but with
Yeah,
lottery, it's zero. I mean, truly, I won
interesting.
zero
I
lottery
thought
jobs.
that's like, yeah, one of those, a unicorn for me. Like to do a lottery job just sounds so fun because supposedly they have these huge budgets and
Or
you got to go big. Like,
or
you
they're like
have to go big.
wacky.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, or at
always
least they
wacky.
take risks, you know, and
Yeah,
you're like, well, that seems
yeah.
fun. But I'll never forget, this is treatment related to stay on topic. I lost that job and it was, they said the whole like between you and this other woman. First of all, I'm always thrilled to lose against another woman, so I was excited about that. But the producer let me read her treatment with her permission. Now we're friends. Her treatment was amazing. Like the detail that she went into on the script section was just so well written and so cinematic that I was
Mm.
like, she won that job fair and square. Like her treatment fucking rocked. My treatment was really good. Like
Yeah,
I think I do a really good job.
yeah.
But the way in which she went into true like cinematic coverage and how she saw every single moment
Mm.
of this 30-second spot playing out really really impressed me and actually kind of changed the way that now I sometimes go into those sections of the
Mm.
treatment.
That's so cool. No, I love when you can kind of have that dialogue with
Yeah.
the people you're against and you can kind of share and just talk through things. I feel like you learn so much in that
Yeah.
process. And like, it's like you win some, you lose some, and you have to sort of learn to lose. You have to like be able to let things go.
Yes.
That's such a huge part of the process, I feel like.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think the worst part about, well, there's a lot of worst parts about being in commercials, but one of them is like just not knowing why you lost. So
yeah,
oftentimes you're
yeah.
like, why didn't I get this job? And there's really not a good reason. But
Yeah.
but when like someone has a really killer treatment, and like in that instance, I was like, fuck yeah, she won that job. Like she really wrote her ass off.
Yeah.
And so I thought, great, now I feel like if, I don't know who's real would be like better for the job, but pretending those things were the same, then her treatment just like eked out mine, I think, in that
Mm.
case. So which is, yeah, what treatments, it's just obviously one piece of why we get hired and how
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
hired, but
Yeah.
at least it's something we have control over, right? Which is why this class exists, because at
Yeah.
least this is something we can control.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's just taken me so much, like so many mistakes over the years to really realize, and I just kind of wish that there was something like this that existed that was much more open and fluid, and
Yeah,
especially, I mean, more so like we're lucky maybe to have more support where we can have
yeah,
designer, we can have somebody pulling images, but to even think about the directors that are starting out that are going to be kind of looking at this, and you're emerging, and just remembering how much it takes to do everything,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and that you can kind of build up to having a team. But that's why I also wanted to just focus on my own, like optimizing my processes so that I can image tag things, and I
mm,
can rather than just going through the same motions. And just really over the pandemic I've tried to, like, kind of look at it from like a business person point of view,
good for you.
and really just like I shouldn't be spending this much time on this because I've done this 5 times, or the
Mm,
different sections that you rewrite 10 different ways. I guess
yeah,
the question I have for you is, like, because obviously you're a writer director,
yeah,
you're a really great writer, and but how do you, and maybe this is more natural because it's always a struggle, if you're not familiar with the brand, and maybe you don't necessarily connect with the brand, but still kind of like getting that excitement to come through.
yeah,
Because I think in the beginning I struggled with, I was just like talking very normally, not like a cinematic director that's
yeah, yeah.
soap is gonna, like, just be luscious on the skin.
Yeah,
And then I realized, oh, this is how we're talking. And this is what they want to hear. We're talking to clients
yeah,
that this is, and so I had to amp myself up to believe what I was saying in a way,
yeah,
to really like get excited about, this particular soap brand or whatever.
yeah.
But how do you like get yourself in that headspace when you're writing, or for a brand that you're not as familiar with?
Yeah, I almost always open a treatment with some sort of a personal connection to whatever the product is.
Mhm.
Like I'm currently pitching on a mop,
Oh, nice.
and it's like a Swiffer competitor, and I, we're new neighbors, so that I bought a house recently, and it
Yeah.
has these horrible white linoleum floors, and so truly, like mopping is a terrible part of our life now. We absolutely hate mopping, and so that was an easy way for me to be like, let me tell you about mopping. You know what I mean? Like this is. So I
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
have some sort of like I try to find some sort of way into the brand, like I did like a Travis Kelsey and the Chiefs thing, and like I could say it wasn't for the Chiefs, but he's on the Chiefs. Obviously, I love
yeah.
football, but I could make a joke about like, if I get this job, then my family will finally like be proud of me because I'll have worked with an NFL player, and like they can finally understand what I do. So I try to find some like personal way into it, and then frankly, I'm probably just amusing myself throughout the treatment. Like I do think that for me specifically as a comedy director, if my treatment isn't funny, like if it's not a funny, a fun and funny read, I don't know that I would get hired. Like I
Mhm.
should also be funny. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
if I were like a really serious like French, if I was like a Denis Villeneuve, whatever, don't know how to say his name, but he's a genius. If I was like that kind of a director directing Dune or whatever, I imagine that the language in my treatment might be a little bit different. It's not that I don't get into like super cinematic language and like the camera dollies in across whatever through the
Yeah.
foreground to I say that shit too,
Mhm.
but there's definitely like some self-awareness and like lots of myself throughout
Yeah.
the treatment,
Yeah.
which perhaps that's take it or leave it. Like, sometimes that might be like a little too much personality for people, but also I don't know, that is what I am, what I
Yeah.
am, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that having your true, like, authentic voice coming through is what people want to hear. I think erring on that side.
Hopefully.
I'm just so entertained. Like, I want to read one of yours just because I wouldn't say that I'm definitely not like funny. I think I have a very like satirical point of view. So,
Yeah.
but I don't think I just to be entertained and to like like laugh out loud at your treatment is just such a like interesting goal, or you just naturally do that. But I've never really had that, I don't think, for my own treatment. So
Yeah.
that's really, really fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's where you have to know, what sort of sandbox you're playing in.
yeah,
Like, and also part of my process on set and in the treatment stage is almost always at least presenting like alt jokes and
yeah,
alt whatever, you know what I mean? Like I'm always presenting that stuff. I almost never expect to do it because that's a different that's your next course, is like how to go from winning the job to directing something on your reel, which is like, who even knows? Um, but yeah, at least I do feel like that's like one of the strengths that I bring is like Oren, to talk about Oren. His One of his strengths is that he's so great at visual effects. That's not
yeah,
my strength, and you are too, actually. Like, you both have that sort of in your wheelhouse, and I am still sort of like learning. I literally texted him earlier and said, will you I'll buy you lunch if you put a mid-journey thing together for me, because I have like, I want you to help me with this thing. He's like, okay. um so it's also
I
like
love
playing
that.
to your strengths, it's like, I'm a writer, I do comedy, so that's something that I'm gonna really try to crush in my
Yeah,
in my treatments.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I come from such a visual point of view, so
Weren't you
it's
you were a
yeah,
photographer, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
started out as a photographer, so because that's the writing part is something I've had to really work on and develop over time because it isn't where I came from,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think I was going to ask you about sort of your casting kind of conversations that you're having, because that must be so interesting and like multi-layered, since you're working with a lot of celebrities and you have to probably do a ton of research, and whether, I guess, the job has the celebrity booked or if they're looking at like three people.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's probably a delicate dance where you're like name dropping, you're like, oh, it should be like this or should be like this, but references probably can be interesting to like dance around because you don't want to say
Yeah.
the wrong reference, or I don't know, what's that casting section like to tackle, because it's not like my
Yeah. Yeah, so with celeb stuff, and often they should go out to directors when the celeb is locked, but they often don't, which
yeah,
then the
yeah,
project sometimes falls apart, which is really annoying. But if they're still deciding between a few people, I usually ask on the first call, like, because I'll put that person throughout, so I just will be like, just to be clear, we're out to Regina King's people, right? So that's who I'm gonna put on the treatment. We can change it later, and they'll say yes. Or on this mop thing, it's not. I didn't win this job yet, obviously, but it's like not a celeb thing. But I'm like, okay, is it like a Mindy Kaling? Is it like a Vanessa Bayer? Is it a Kristen Wiig? I'm just trying to like throw
mm-hmm.
out some celebs so they have some sort of a comp, and then they can tell me, which direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to get that really clear up front, because you're right. I do think if they just happen to really not like that actor, or if they think they're totally wrong for the part, that that may cost you the job.
Yeah, it's a weird, delicate balance, because then if you don't use references, then you're kind of just using like sensory, if they
Right.
feel like this,
Yeah.
and it kind of limits, to be more on the nose. But that's interesting. With like, how often do you kind of converse back and forth with your EP during the process? Like, do they um, I feel like mine used to be much more involved, and now I kind of feel like they're just so busy that they also just like, all right, do it, and then
I
nobody really
know.
reads through it, and that's fine, because I'm glad that we're all busy. But I like a little more hand holding sometimes, because I don't want
Yeah.
to be like in my box, and I gotta bounce it off of somebody. And like Orrin
Yeah.
and I were talking, like he's talking about the like director, wait, what is he calling it? The director meetup, or the
Oh yeah,
director
we gotta
group.
have another one.
He's,
Yes.
but yeah, but he just so casually reaches out to, because you guys are really
He
close friends, and just to like
he does
bounce
he
things.
does call me a lot. too much, if I'm being honest. Sometimes Kara will be like, will you hang out with Oren, please? And I'm like, yes.
Oh my God.
That's his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I am lucky. Actually, you're in a relationship with a creative person. I thank God my wife like loves movies and
Yeah.
has tons of reference because I'm just constantly bouncing ideas off of her. But
Yeah.
if I didn't have her, I would absolutely be up my EP's ass. Because you do just have to talk to
Yeah.
someone, you're like, okay, I'm so if she had a mop and I'm just bullshitting now, but like a mop on one hand and then one on her leg, like that's not quite it. And they're like, what if she's also on her left arm? And you're like, thank you, whatever it is.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, but I'm currently repped at Imposter, and they usually do read through my treatment and leave notes. Like I do it on a Google Doc, and then they leave notes on it, and then we send it off to the designer after that, depending
Yeah.
on the timeline. Sometimes the designer gets involved, before I have a chance to totally get all their notes.
Yeah. 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 This is something that we had been talking about briefly, but do you have any opinions on like the length of a treatment and what sort of appropriate like
How funny. I just listened to a Just Shoot It podcast, and I know Oren was
oh
talking about this. So I know he thinks sort of the longer the better to a degree, right?
yeah, well I have an experience and I wanted to hear yours and then I'll
Yeah.
share mine. What do you think?
Yeah. I've won and lost jobs of all sorts of lengths. I
Yeah.
wish I don't really know. I don't totally know. Like
Yeah.
I've written 40-page treatments and lost the job. I've written 40-page treatments and gotten the job. I've written super short, lean treatments and gotten it and lost it. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't totally know what the
Yeah. And
correlation
like,
is.
I guess that we would hope that that wouldn't necessarily be a factor if there's a lot to the project that you have to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
That's it.
did.
Actually, the length, I used to think that. Now he thinks 25 pages is great. Oh my God, Oren is listening.
He's listening. I
Incredible.
can't believe.
He's one of the few people, I love it. Yeah, he used to think that. You know what? It also, but to speak about the page length, like the current thing that I'm pitching on, it's just one spot. So
Yeah.
inherently, that's going to be a leaner treatment than like sometimes you get ones that are like 3 or 4 spots, and maybe it's 5 and they don't know which 3 of the 5
Right.
they're going to choose, and you're like, well, fuck me. I have to extrapolate on 5 like fully different ideas, and inherently, the script section of that treatment is going to be 12 pages long, like at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's half the treatment right there.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. My recent experience back in the spring was submitted something that was just got out of control. It was like 65 pages. And I think it was because, I
Yikes.
thought that it was like there was a dialogue where we were kind of trying to up the transition elements. I was giving suggestions. And then
Yeah.
I had some like personal issues happening with my family. So I couldn't really focus wholly on dissecting everything I put down. And then, because I think a lot of what I have to do is like cut down on all of the vomit that I put. like, okay, let's tailor,
yeah.
let's be like, let's make it more concise. And then I lost the job, and I realized that, and it was just probably because my head wasn't, it's very like emotional time, but also was really excited about this job. But it's like
that is
by
a deadly,
default,
that's actually a bad I'm sorry. Yeah,
oh,
I'm sorry that happened to you.
I mean, I should have said no. I should have just been like, no, I'm not in the headspace to bid this thends But that's another thing. It's like, when do you say no? I was excited about the idea, but I think what ends up happening if you're not like in a good headspace is that you just go like above and beyond, and then so I lost, I think because like I was just so far over like what was necessary to be a solid treatment.
Wow, this is too much. Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's like when you're in school, and I love school, as we talked about, but they're like, turn in your essay. It should be 500 to 700 pages. To me, like if you can write a killer 500 to 550 whatever word essay, then that's going to be better than like a 700 page essay. I keep saying pages, 700 words.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh yeah, I was like, that's a lot of.
Yes, it's a novel. You didn't write
Yeah.
novels in high
Yeah.
school? Well,
Yeah.
like big novels, like Harry Potter, not even just novellas, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, 500 words. Yeah, that's so
Mm.
sometimes, but like yeah, I try to keep my pitches like sort of concise too, and like my ideas really specific, just so it's, and that's like a screenwriting thing too, right? It's like,
Yeah.
if you don't have a log line that is helps tell sort of like the driving central conflict of your story in a concise, clear, engaging way, then the likelihood of your screenplay being really tight is kind of low, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I was going to ask you about do you dialogue with your, I guess, your bidding producer on, you know, like, I don't know how open it is. Like, do you talk about we're going over, we're going under,
Mm.
or strategize like with, if you do happen to know the other bidders, or if there's like transparency, are you kind of like using that to speak from that, or do you not want to know, or does that kind of prefer not to like let that impact you?
Yeah, I'm a nosy bitch, so I love to know. Um, and I usually do for some reason, my East Coast reps always send through like a bid sheet that says who I'm bidding against. And sometimes
Oh, cool.
I feel like oftentimes I'm like one of the first or second person to engage. So it's like, then we're TBD on like the third.
Mhm.
But yeah, I usually do know who I'm bidding against. And sometimes I go down a dark path knowing, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
thought I was bidding against this really cool woman at like Hungry Man recently, and I was like, fuck, and I was like, I was just telling my wife, I was like, well, if she wins, like she's really good, so that's fine, actually that's fine if she wins, because like she's a good director, you know what I mean? It's like I really like her stuff. So on
Yeah.
one hand, it was like, so I can kind of psych myself out sometimes, but when I'm in a better headspace and not on Instagram and not comparing myself to
Oh, yeah.
people,
Thank you for
I,
telling me.
I know. When I'm not in a deep and a compare and despair mindset, then it can help me
Yeah.
strategize, right? Because if it's like, if I were bidding against you and I even knew you, and I would focus on like my strengths, because I'm like, okay, Christina is going to bring this, like her visuals on her treatment are just going to be amazing. So I'm going to really like nail the writing
Mm.
because that's what I can do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really, really great. And I think, so actually, I'm kind of curious, this is like a sidebar, but did you delete Instagram because, and that was obviously purposeful, but like you've been off of the platform, like
Just
total social media diet situation?
when the Sundance stuff came out, when people started getting into Sundance, I was getting into compare and despair mode. And, my wife had to be like, babe, you didn't even submit anything. I'm like, I know. I didn't even have a film to submit, but the idea of not getting into Sundance really bummed me out. And even though like I have friends that got in that I'm truly happy for, you know what I mean? I was like, hell yeah, you can both want that for somebody else. You can both like be happy for your friends and also want it for yourself, and both of those
Mm.
things could be true. And I just saw myself just kind of being weird. I just was not happy looking at people getting into Sundance. And so I
Yeah.
took it off.
Yeah, I get that. Thanks for your vulnerability. I think it's like really, no, I mean, it's, these are the things that like people don't talk about. It's like it's not healthy. You know when to
Yeah.
shut, you know when to, because there's so much power that you have in what you can nurture, and you really a lot of times have to put your head down. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I feel like I've really wanted to, well, I've unintentionally sort of became a Luddite, and not really, but like I stopped using social
Yeah.
media as well. I mean, I had the accounts, but
Yeah,
like, okay,
I look on my computer, obviously, which is like I'm not even, but it's better than being on my phone because it's like it's less of a like I'm in bed at night going like, this sort of like a little like mole being like, well, she got into Senate and he got into Senate. Well, of course he got into Senate. His dad was a writer on SNL. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this isn't good. This is not a
yeah,
healthy place to be in. You
yeah,
know,
no, I think
like
that's well.
terrible.
Going back to, is there like any rituals you have when you start on a treatment or when you start on any kind of pitch? Because I know you work on other projects besides just commercial projects. And I just think there's kind of a special, like, for me at least, kind of getting in that headspace and like allowing myself a good amount of time that's uninterrupted. But yeah, I mean, for you, is there like a little magic touch that you're
I smoke a lot of weed and then just vibe out. No. I do have a kind of I don't know if this is probably not magic, but I like to get the boards, and if they say, can you have the call today? I almost always say no. I just don't like that. I like to read them before I go to bed and think, and do a lot of like research about like, you know, whatever. Oh, that reminds me of this scene in Seinfeld, to bring back our friend. And then whatever, and watch a bunch of stuff, and then think about it, and then go to sleep, and then wake up the next morning and ideate on it. And people who've listened to me talk on any podcast, which I'm not remotely famous, I don't mean it like that, but truly just shoot it. I'm all about this process called deep work, which is like getting off the internet and accessing that like deep creative part of yourself that you have to create space for.
Yeah.
So I turn off I just turn off the internet for a couple hours.
Turn it off. Like it's a channel, like off.
Yeah. I put my phone in a different room and I turn off the internet. And if I'm really struggling,
you actually
concentrate,
unplug it. That's what you're talking about. Oh, amazing.
Unless
this is
Alex is here, in which case I can't do that. But I will, if worse comes to worse and I really am having trouble with self-control and the internet, I will use an app called Pomo to do, POMOTODO, Pomodoro technique. Yeah. And so I will, that timer helps because it's like 25 minutes on, 5-minute break. And I love like a timer and a task. So if I'm really struggling, I use that app. Like I did that this morning because we had some tree people coming I was excited about, and I just needed to focus.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love, there's like these artist friends of mine that are so talented. They're actually like a photographer duo, but cool. They, like their whole body of work they talk about is kind of tactically, scheduling lucid dreaming to be able to kind of access these ideas and just being able to like nurture to let your unconscious mind like solve or like have these. I mean, it's just like such a refreshing way to kind of start from that point of view.
I love that.
That's super cool, and you're inspiring me to just think about like, because I think that's a Cal Newport thing, right?
Yes, it's Cal Newport, deep work. Yeah. I think that, I mean, since we're IG Live, here's a bunch of embarrassing books I have, all sorts of things. Like,
ooh, let's see.
Give us Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualization. The Power of Your Magic. I love this shit. I'm all about it. What is all this crap? You know what I mean? Like, I love screenwriting books. Obviously, I have a little
art of back.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't really like that.
I didn't like how
he manager
talked. He was very like alpha male.
Yeah, that was a gift from my manager, and I love her, so I kept it. But it's not really my thing. But I love this stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, we get to be creative for a living, and highs and lows. So, but I mean, again, like, thank you so much for your time. Your work is so captivating and hilarious, and I was just digging into like more of your personal work and like the butt series like that. I just like had no idea. I mean, I haven't like dug deep, and so but yeah, so I really appreciate you taking the time, and fingers crossed on the pitch that you just submitted. And we'll continue the conversation.
Thank you for chatting with me. It was so fun.
Yeah, this is so great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm such a Luddite. Yeah, I'm a Luddite and couldn't figure out how to get on, but that's cool. Well, next time I'll be a pro.
We got this. All right. See you later.
Okay, bye.